Have you ever been in a room full of people, laughing, talking, even hugging, and yet felt an invisible wall between you and everyone else? You're surrounded by faces, yet there's a hollow echo inside, as if your heart is calling out for something deeper, something real. There's a strange paradox in intimacy that many of us never talk about. The closer we get to others, the lonelier we sometimes feel. Tonight, I want to take you into that paradox, not to leave you in despair, but to shed light on why this happens, and how boundaries and balance can transform loneliness into profound connection. Let's begin with an idea from Søren Kierkegaard, a philosopher who knew the human heart like few others. He said that people demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. Isn't that interesting? We talk, we express, we share. But how often do we think deeply before connecting? Kierkegaard was pointing to something crucial. Intimacy without introspection often leads to distance, not closeness. We can be physically near, utterly connected by screens and social media, and still emotionally adrift. Even in ancient times, Plato warned that love and desire are not the same thing. Desire pulls us close. Love keeps us balanced. But in a world obsessed with closeness, more text messages, more pictures, more connectedness, we forget that intimacy without balance often becomes dependency. Simone de Beauvoir, the famed existentialist, taught that true love demands to complete individuals. She didn't mean perfect people, she meant people with inner lives and boundaries. Without this, intimacy becomes a trap, not a bridge. Think about a violin string. If it's too loose, there's no music. If it's too tight, it snaps. Only when it's balanced does it sing. This is why relationships can sometimes feel like prisons instead of sanctuaries. The string of connection is either under tension or ready to tear. The great mystic Rumi put it poetically: the wound is the place where the light enters you. But without the balance of self-awareness, that wound becomes a scar that isolates instead of heals. Boundaries, then, are not walls. They're the edges of our emotional string, the tension that allows intimacy to resonate. Brene Brown, a modern wisdom figure on vulnerability, explains that vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. But she also reminds us that vulnerability without boundaries is not courage, it's self-erasure. True intimacy requires courage and clarity. Let's bring in a different voice, someone outside philosophy, the musician Leonard Cohen. He wrote, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." We celebrate that line because it feels poetic. But at its core, it's true. Our cracks, our brave places of vulnerability, let connection grow. Yet, if we blow open those cracks without care, without balance, we leak ourselves away. We trade pieces of our identity for acceptance, attention, approval. Then we wonder why we feel lonely in a relationship, even a close one. World leaders have spoken about balance, too. Nelson Mandela endured decades of isolation, yet came out without bitterness. Why? Because he practiced inner boundaries, not walls of division, but boundaries that guarded his dignity and values. He understood the balance between connection and solitude, between influence and self-preservation. This balance kept his sense of self, even when he was physically alone. Many psychologists today agree. Loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about feeling disconnected from understanding, from mutual respect, from shared inner worlds. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived unimaginable suffering, said that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Loneliness can be a state of heart, not just circumstance. When we choose openness and boundaries, we open the door to intimacy that heals rather than harms. Now imagine two people walking side by side, each fully present with their own inner life, not clinging, not demanding, but offering their truths and listening deeply to the other. That's balance. That's mature intimacy. That's what Aristotle might have called friendship of virtue. Relationships where both people grow, because they bring strength, not emptiness, to each other. Still, many of us have learned intimacy through parents who shielded us too much, or friends who expected too much, or lovers who demanded too much. So we carry patterns of either shutting down or pouring out. But what if we learn to feel deeply and hold lightly? What if we treat intimacy like fire, warm and illuminating, but dangerous if uncontrolled? That's where boundaries come in. They don't push people away. They shape the connection so it becomes sustainable, meaningful, and real. And balance, oh balance, is the art behind every meaningful relationship. The inventor Nikola Tesla once said, "The desire that guides me in all I do is the desire to harness the forces of nature to the service of mankind." If we think of relational forces as nature, then balance is the harness that channels them. Without it, our emotional energy disperses into chaos, anxiety, unmet expectations, and ultimately loneliness. So let me ask you this, as you reflect tonight: when have you felt closest to someone but still alone? What was missing? Was it understanding, respect, self-respect, or boundaries? And in your closest relationships today, do you give space for others to be, and space for you to remain you? How do you keep yourself while loving deeply? I want to read your thoughts and experiences in the comments, because your story could help someone else notice something life-changing. If this video helped you see intimacy and loneliness in a new light, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss future videos like this. I promise to keep creating engaging, thought-provoking explorations into life's deepest questions. Until next time, remember, intimacy doesn't have to lead to loneliness. With boundaries that honor your worth and balance that honors your heart, closeness can become the home your soul has been seeking.